Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. Thank you for listening. We would like to remind you that this podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only, and is not a substitute for medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Known as just a silly boy with a feely heart. Please consider supporting the show. Check us out on Patreon or simply leave a review on iTunes. Here's your host and creator of the show, Known Wells.
Hello, feely humans. Welcome to You, Me, Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and that is my name. N-O-N, line over the O. Don't wear it out. That was an old person thing to say. Any hoozles. This is episode 62. I talk with my friend Sarah Fader of Stigma Fighters about what it takes to be a mental illness stigma fighter on the show. We actually talk about a great gobs of things today, like our feely human responsibility to look inward, the radical love of self-acceptance. We talk about childhood panic attacks and Sarah's bipolar disorder diagnosis, and the challenge of grounding exercises, and why we need to look inward. And we also talk about how we all, as feely humans, perceive and define feelings differently, and all sorts of things, okay? Before I get to the show, I did want to mention there was a couple points in this interview, this chat with Sarah, where I think I used the word schizophrenic to define someone. And I wanted to be clear that I am working on trying to be more people first with the language I used. This was recorded a few months back, and a listener of the show and feely human, Katie, had reached out to me and reminded me that I do need to be more mindful of people first language. And in the case of schizophrenia, say something like a human with schizophrenia as opposed to schizophrenic. So I just wanted to be clear about that. I'm working on that. It's like you get used to saying a thing. I don't mean any offense by it. I don't mean any offense by it. It's a thing that I've gotten used to, I guess. And I am happy to be corrected because I think it's important to use people first language. And just so you know, I'm always coming from a place of kindness and empathy and love and healing and acceptance, and I accept you all because you all are my favorite people on the planet, on this pale blue dot, okay? So that's where I'm at. A few points in this audio, this interview, the audio is gets a little bit fuzzy, but that just happens sometimes when you're recording over Skype. Sometimes Wi-Fi goes a little wonky, and it happens. But I hope you enjoy the episode. It's great. Sarah Fader is great. Go check out stigmafighters.com. Go follow Sarah on Twitter at @TheSarahFader, SarahFader. She is a wonderful human doing a lot of great work in the world fighting against stigma. Before we get to the episode, though, please follow the show on Instagram and Twitter at YouMeEmpathy. We also have a Facebook community, which is lovely and beautiful at facebook.com/groups/YouMeEmpathy. We have a YouMeEmpathy shop. So if you go to knownwells.com, you can find links to the shop there. You can get some tote bags, and you can get a t-shirt, and you can get a mug, and all other sorts of goodies. We also are on Patreon at patreon.com/YouMeEmpathy. It's like a subscription. You pay like $1 a month. It's like 25 cents an episode, or you can pay more than that if you want. And it's just an ongoing way to support the show and kind of offset podcast hosting costs and other things of that nature. The last thing I'll say, the thing I say in every episode of this podcast, is to please subscribe and rate and review the show in iTunes specifically. And Google is good as well. But please, the more ratings the show gets, the more reviews, written reviews in iTunes, the more people can see it. And I want more empathy in the world. I want these conversations in the world, these beautiful, courageous conversations with people like Sarah and the many guests I've had on the show. I want more people to listen because it's important. Okay, I will get off my feely human soapbox. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for listening. I love you. This is episode 62, What It Takes to Be a Mental Illness Stigma Fighter with Sarah Fader.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, a podcast about exploring the struggles we face in our day-to-day lives as humans trying to get by on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. The intent of You, Me, Empathy is to talk openly, without judgment, about our neuroses, our mental illnesses, our shared anxieties and worries, to create a dialogue that is vulnerable and deeply human and empathetic, and to share that dialogue with others to inspire emotional and cognitive collaboration and insight, so we can, hand in hand, break down the stigma that make us feel shame and guilt for struggling, for feeling our feelings, for being human. You, Me, Empathy is a safe, friendly space designed to inspire the beauty in each of us. Today, I'm overjoyed to empathize with prolific writer, book author, and passionate mental illness stigma fighter, Sarah Fader. Hello, Sarah.
Hello. I'm eating a chocolate bar.
Okay. The listeners will adore that. They tend to love, generally, people chewing on podcasts.
I'm chewing.
Good.
But I'm not going to I won't be chewing for very long. It's just that I have to tell you what kind of a chocolate bar this is.
Oh, please tell me.
Oh my God. Okay, hold on, because I have to enjoy this for just 2 seconds. So the kids went trick-or-treating with their dad, and they got a lot of random, obviously, little bite-sized candy bar things. But my son comes in and says, "Here, Mommy, I have something for you." And it's a giant Oreo chocolate bar.
Whoa, I've never heard of this.
I know. So I was like, I'm a little skeptical. Could this be good? But when you open it, the first layer is Lindt chocolate. And then underneath it, it's like an Oreo cookie inside.
Wow. Now that's
it was
Lindt
intense.
With a NDT, not a LINT.
That would be scary if there were drier Lindt chocolates. But no, LINDT.
Got it.
Right. Yes.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying that, and your kids are able to share some of their chocolate with you.
Right. It's all about empathy and sharing.
Exactly.
Because they were empathizing with the fact that I didn't get to go trick-or-treating.
Oh, well, there you go.
So, I mean, it comes full circle. It's about teaching them young.
It's the circle of life.
Right.
As
that
Elton John taught us.
Right. Yeah. That movie, by the way, is very traumatic. The Lion King, I feel like it's not really for children.
How so?
It's very dark.
There's death. Yeah.
There's death in a lot of Disney films. I suppose it is for children, but it's super dark. I think that, let's just say as a parent, I'm glad that film didn't come out when, during this generation, so I'd have to explain it to my kids.
Sure. We were raised with much darker things.
We were raised with darker things. Children of the late 80s and 90s, there was no sugarcoating things. I don't think that I was really supervised in terms of what I was watching. I'm sure that at age 7 and 8, I should not have been watching Nightmare on Elm Street, but I was. It was happening.
Yeah. Well, thank you for being here, Sarah. I'm excited to chat with you and get to know you more. Before we do that, though, I guess it's what we're already doing, but we always start the show with an emotional check-in. So how are you doing today? How are you doing? How was your week?
Oh man, and let me think about that for a second. It's been one of those weeks where it's been a different emotion every day. Like it hasn't been sort of a level week. It's been a roller coaster emotionally. And so I feel kind of like life is full of surprises. And I feel like this week epitomized that for me. I wasn't prepared. Every time I thought something was going to go a certain way, it went the opposite way.
Yeah.
And for someone that has OCD and anxiety, that's very difficult because I don't do well when things change. And I'm working on that because I think that that is one of the best skills that we can develop in life, no matter what your challenges are, is dealing with change effectively. And I guess it's not even so much effectively as much as it is working on accepting things.
Yeah.
And, I think that this week was about kind of confronting the fact that that's really difficult for me. And it kept getting highlighted every time something came up that was unexpected. Like, for example, yesterday, Aaron and I were supposed to go out on a date, and we go out every Friday, but then his kid got sick, and it was so frustrating because that's like our date night, and we're really busy. And so having that taken away was really hard for me.
Yeah, I could see that.
And it wasn't like, there's nothing he can do. If your kid is sick, your kid is sick. But I was upset at the universe. I'm like, why?
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like a deprivation or a loss, because now I have to wait until next Friday for us to go hang out and be adults. So that's the kind of thing that kept happening this week, is I was like, yes, this thing is going to happen. Just kidding.
Yeah.
Like a bunch of those.
We've all been there. I think we can all very strongly relate to that experience. When you do experience those sort of sudden change moments, like how do you process it in the moment? Are you I mean, I'm sure you're sensing some frustration, you're sensing some, curse you universe, but like, how are you dealing with it now? Are you getting better at it? Are you breathing through it? What kinds of things are you sort of self-talking to work through it?
Oh, yeah. I can answer that, but I forgot to ask the rating of this podcast, whether there is profanity or if it's PG. So I don't know.
Every episode I rate explicit because, there we get into triggering things and all language is valid. So yes, fucking say whatever you want, because all language is valid. Intent is the thing that matters.
Right, because that's the thing, is that it will inevitably just come out like organically.
Yeah. You be you, Sarah.
Right. So, I always say to my kids, like, they'll say a curse word and they'll be like, "Oh, sorry, bad word." I'm like, no, those are just at home words. Just don't say them at school. Yep.
Audience matters too.
Right. Know your audience. Exactly. Read as a quote from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, read the room. That's really what you have to do.
Yeah, totally.
I guess the answer to that question, though, is that I don't really know how to handle it. I mean, I'm going into DBT next week, or I'm in the process of being evaluated or like entering into group DBT sessions. And then I'm going to find a DBT therapist, because one of the challenges that I have as a highly sensitive person is emotional regulation. And my emotions are so strong that what happens is when I get upset about something, it's like Sarah disappears and the emotion is replaced. Like I'm like a giant ball of like sadness, or giant ball of like frustration. Like and one of the things that I struggle with too as a person is I'm very cerebral. Like I feel like I'm just a brain floating. So
like
it's
Krang.
really hard. Yeah, exactly. Totally like Krang. Like I always think of like Ninja Turtles, you know? So I'm totally Krang, but I feel very weird because it's really hard for me when people talk about grounding exercises and like going back into your body and stuff like that. That's something that is good for me. Like mindfulness is always good, but it's extremely hard. It's really challenging. Um, and so when I get into those situations where I'm like something didn't go the way that I thought it would go, and then I have to handle it, it is almost like pushing against the current.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
that's well
doesn't,
said.
right? It doesn't feel natural. It feels like I have to do something that is extremely hard and it doesn't feel like possible, if that makes sense.
It does make sense. Do you think why are you pursuing DBT? Is that something that you've learned to be helpful in these situations with people?
I'm going into DBT because I found that one of the I've been through like I've been through trauma. Like I self-diagnosed myself with complex PTSD, and complex PTSD and things like borderline have overlapping symptoms. Um, and I also have bipolar type 1, so emotional regulation is a big part of what I struggle to deal with as a human. And so DBT, the focus is primarily on emotional regulation, mindfulness, distress tolerance. And those are things that I have the most difficulty with right now. Like, I think that's one of the things that I think we don't acknowledge um, as much as we should, which is that your emotional and psychological and mental health needs change as you grow and get older. So things that I dealt with, for example, as a teenager or like in my early 20s, I don't necessarily I'm not I mean they might be challenges for me still, but there are new things that are more pressing.
Yeah.
And does that make sense?
It does, and it totally makes sense, and I agree with you. It has to change, but it's also one of those things where it's almost easier to have it not change, you know, because accepting this idea that you have to sort of roll with the tide and adapt to new situations and try new things for your mental health is exhausting.
Yeah, and that's the thing that frustrates me, exactly like what you said. So even with physical ailments, like if I get like a pain in my lower back, I'm like, oh fuck, is this a new thing that I have to add onto the list of things? Like I don't know if this is going to stay or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I get annoyed that because as I get older, well, part of it is like the hypochondriac in me, right? So like I'm just like, oh no, is am I dying or what's happening? Like I start going down that rabbit hole. But the other thing about it is that I don't know whether this is going to be like added onto my symptom list of things I have to manage.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like that with emotional things too, because I started having I used to be good at managing my frustration levels. I'm definitely I have a low frustration tolerance in general, but I used to be good at not taking it out on other people. So what started to happen with PTSD is that skill kind of did not stay, right? Like I started kind of lashing out sometimes, which is not something I'm proud of. And I'm not proud of it. So I'm trying to figure out how to manage that because I don't want to do that. I don't want to hurt people. And I think that even not just with PTSD, but that's something that is important. Like I once wrote this article, I have to republish it because it's in draft right now, but it's called Mental Illness Doesn't Give You an Excuse to Be an Asshole. And so the idea behind that is, hang on one second, children. Samara, do you want a muffin? chocolate chip muffin? Okay. So one of the things that what I mean by that, well, let me put that to you actually. What do you think I mean? Mental illness doesn't give you an excuse to be an asshole.
I think it means that we, as individuals, regardless of what experiences we've had, regardless of what mental illness we've been diagnosed with or self-diagnosed with, whatever struggles we've experienced, I think each of us have a responsibility to look inward and recognize how we impact the world and impact the people in our lives. And I think this goes for every human, is we need to understand how we interact with the world. And if some of our interactions could be interpreted as being an asshole or being negative or negatively impacting something, then yeah, it's on us to look at that. Now, of course, with that, with mental illness, there is much room for the balance of, be kind to yourself and understand, and be patient as well, because sometimes it's not easy, or sometimes it's not easy when you are having hypomania or you're schizophrenic or something, and it takes maybe a different tact to find that sort of inner understanding. It's different for everyone, but I think the general message I would say is each of us have a responsibility to look inward and understand how we impact the world.
Yeah, that's extremely articulate and well done.
Thanks.
That's exactly what I meant. And just to piggyback on that, we're all going to be assholes from time to time, no matter what your diagnosis is or who you are as a human. Like, you could not have any glaring mental health problems and you could have an asshole moment. But the key is having the emotional insight to not blame other people for your assholery.
Yeah.
So if you do something that hurts someone's feelings, own it and apologize.
It's so funny. You are spot on. My wife and I were actually just having a conversation about this a couple days ago. And, based on sort of my own personal interactions in my lifetime, most people have a hard time getting there, getting to a place where, like you said, Sarah, getting to a place where you can have that emotional insight and look inward and say, look, this is not about them. I'm bringing this to this situation. And it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to get to that point.
Well, yeah, I think so. And I realized this yesterday because Aaron and I got into a heated argument about linguistics and semantics yesterday. And we were talking about, which again, I mean, look at your Skype handle, right? Obviously, you are a lover of words.
Indeed, I am.
And I have to say, you do have one of the best Skype handles I've ever heard. So it reminds me of Mad Libs.
Oh, sure. I love those.
Which as a tangential point, I'm writing a book of mental health Mad Libs. So I will talk about that if you want to hear more.
Yes.
So Aaron and I were talking about, I asked him how a particular situation made him feel. And he and I have very differing perspectives on, I don't know, a lot of things, but this was very interesting, this conversation and the way that it turned. So what he said was, it's not fair. The situation isn't fair, and it's not good. And so I said to him, okay, I understand that, but that is an observation, and that is looking at the situation and making some kind of a assessment of it, but that's not a feeling. So I was like, so what is your emotion attached to that? What do you feel? And he's like, I just told you my feeling. That's my feeling. I feel it's not fair. I feel like it's not fair. And I said, well, it seems like there's a lot of emotions wrapped up in that. Like, what could they be? And I'm like, that's not, and he's like, well, he was upset. He's like, well, I feel like you're saying that, like, you're telling me that my feelings aren't feelings. And I'm like, my interpretation. So then I had to take a step back and I had to look at it from his perspective. Like, what is he hearing me say? You know? And he's hearing me say, he's hearing me say that I'm invalidating his feelings. That's what he's hearing.
Yes.
So I have to go, okay, well, that's not what I want to happen. Right? Like, I want him to know that his feelings are valid, because they are valid. He's experiencing, this is his experience.
Yes.
So I said to him, you know what? I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say anything, any judgment about your feelings. Like, that is not, well, no, let me back up. Before we even got there, like, we got into this heated debate. I'm like, you're not telling me your feelings. Because I'm like, I define feelings differently. Like, I want to know, are you sad? Are you angry? Like, and this is not me like judging him. This is me coming from a place of caring. It's coming out in a weird way because I get really passionate and stubborn, but I'm trying to find out how he feels because I care.
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
So I'm trying to find out in this very like dominant way, which to which he's like irritated. But what I was going to say is that so we define feelings differently, right? So then he says, well, hold on a second. He goes, if somebody with synesthesia said to you, if they described their feeling to you and they were like, and I said, and then I interrupted him because, ADHD. And I was like, okay, well, if somebody told me that their anger tasted like red, I can't debate that because that's the way that they look at it. That's their perception. I'm not going to tell them they're wrong. And then it occurred to me what he was trying to tell me was that I was doing that to him. And I was like, oh shit, that's what I am doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, oh, well, I didn't mean to invalidate your feelings because they're, that's how you perceive things. And I was like, so let's go with that. So I said, all right, so your feeling is that this situation isn't fair. So in that feeling, what emotion comes up? So what I realized is I had to phrase it differently so he could give me the answer that I was looking for.
Yeah.
So he's like, well, there's a lot of emotions. I feel angry. I feel frustrated. And I was like, okay, that's what I was trying to ask you. Right. So he just perceives things differently. Like, it's not like he doesn't think emotions are real, but he perceives the idea of feelings or defines it differently than I do.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And good job on you for finding that language to get there.
I try, I give it a shot. I mean, what I was trying to get to also is just that, and thank you. That's so nice. You're the best, Non. So one of the things that I think that people struggle with, including myself, is just like humans. Oh, it's about to get really echoey. Hold on. One of the things that we struggle with is to, like you said, to see things from other people's perspectives. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we could get into an entire philosophical debate about that. And that's like my undergraduate major is philosophy. But it's a matter of knowing that our default state is going to be the way we perceive things. Because you are you, right? So you're going to perceive things a particular way. Now, the next step is stop and go, okay, yes, my feelings are valid. And I think the reason that we're not able to see things from other people's perspectives so many times is that there's this kind of epidemic of people believing that they can invalidate other people's feelings. So like, it's like a societal phenomenon. Nobody wants to hear what anybody else has to say or feel, because they believe that their feelings are the ones that matter the most. So if you're consistently being invalidated, then you're going to end up feeling jaded. And then you're not going to want to you don't give a shit about what the other person thinks or feels. So the answer is we need to lead by example and say, you know what? I care about your feelings. So flip it. Like your whole thing, your whole raison d'etre of like empathizing, like you know, empathy is going to take off when we realize what the problem is. You know what I'm saying? Like the problem is that people are not caring for one another. So in order to like reintroduce empathy, we need to notice that it's lacking.
Sure. Yeah. I think one of the stumbling blocks for humanity is also like knowing how to do that, knowing how to care, knowing how to, well, I think in care and in empathizing, and I personally feel like empathy is the thing that will change the world. In that we have to be willing to do what you did with Aaron and allow yourself to be humbled, allow yourself to be vulnerable and listen actively, use critical thinking, be curious, and lead with your heart as opposed to your ego. And I think,
yeah, that's true.
If we check all those boxes, I think we can make a ton of headway.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Let's transition into sort of your origin story, so to speak.
Well, actually, let me just say one thing about that, because I wanted to say about empathy. It's like you said, it's not easy to be empathetic. First of all, I think you outlined it really well. I think that is like totally the like proverbial PDF checklist of like how to be empathetic, you know?
Sure.
But I think that humility is a big part of it, but one of the things that I think makes it so hard to go there and be vulnerable and be humble is, for myself personally, I'm afraid I'm not going to get it back. Right. Mm-hmm. So I'm afraid that it's not going to be reciprocated and that I'm going to be empathetic, but then I won't receive that empathy back. So I struggle with that sometimes. Like, I think I know that I have the skill. I know that I can put myself in this person's shoes. I know that. But like, what if I don't receive that care back? And then I think that'll make me sad, you know? So like, I often find myself in conversations where I'm like, okay, I'm really trying to understand your perspective. I'm really trying. And I would really appreciate it if you could do the same. Like I can't tell you how many times I have that conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Because
I mean, I've had the same trepidation. I've had the same fear. It ultimately can't be something that stops us from embracing that vulnerability, because as much as we like to, we can't control what other people do. What we can do is control what we do and how we maybe are perceived. And my hope, and maybe this is utopian, maybe this is wishful thinking, but my hope is that maybe we do open our hearts and we embrace that vulnerability with someone who doesn't know how to reciprocate, doesn't know how to use that language yet, but maybe they pick up a little bit on what we're saying, and they can maybe a little bit of it, what we're doing, rubs off on them, and that's sort of my hope, and maybe they start sort of implementing it in their own lives, or maybe it takes multiple experiences where they encounter someone like yourself who is opening up and being vulnerable. But it's not going to happen overnight. It is scary, of course, sometimes to be vulnerable and open yourself up. It almost killed me once, but like I think it requires work. It requires the stuff we're talking about, where it requires emotional insight. Looking inward. But if we don't do it, how are we going to change people?
Well, I think those are really excellent points, and I think where I was going to go with that is that's the thing that is a roadblock for me, and I think that to kind of like keep going with what your mission is, I think so. One of the things that I struggle with in terms of empathizing is I think, for everybody, me and, Cookie Monster, like everybody in the world, is to have the emotional fortitude and insight and confidence in myself that if I empathize with somebody else and put myself in their shoes and they don't give me or reciprocate that back, that it's okay, that I did the best that I could in that moment and I don't need them to fulfill my like to give me that energy back to feel validated, right? Because I can theoretically give myself that validation and self-compassion, and I'm not going to lose if they don't reciprocate because I have it within myself. So that what I give is just literally giving. It's like the epitome of altruism.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think empathy and altruism should be synonymous in some ways, or they should be interconnected rather. Like, I think that's where we get lost, is that true empathy is altruistic. You're not doing it because you want something back.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So I think that one of the things we need to get back to in the world is not just empathy, but this idea of being altruistic, because we live in this like very capitalist oriented society in which it's like, what is in it for me?
Yep.
So like, no, there's nothing in it for you. You're just doing it because you want to be a good human.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. I think that's well said. And I think, our culture is in a way, especially American culture, is in a way set up to, I don't know. I find that it's a little anti-empathetic, and it's about competition and pulling ourselves up by our bootstraps and all these sort of more sort of harsher terms that I don't like. And there's toxic masculinity, there's patriarchal bullshit. There's all these things that I think are run counterintuitive to a more sort of heart first empathetic framework. But you're right in that we do need to put ourselves out there. We do need to be vulnerable in order to change. And when we're not reciprocated, we can have the wherewithal to say, hey, I did my best there, and I have my own things to fall back on, my own sort of compassion, my own self-care, and also to recognize that that person who doesn't reciprocate is not wrong or bad. It's it could be a confluence of things. It could be just not knowing how, ignorance, fear, all these things I think are maybe examples of like why someone couldn't reciprocate in that moment.
Well, yeah. And I think, but ultimately what it boils down to is the idea that you have to know yourself and take care of yourself, because if you love yourself, flaws and all, right? Because loving yourself isn't about thinking you're the most awesome person ever in life. Loving yourself is about acceptance, right? So like loving you, like think about, because you can look at this from an eating disorder perspective too, right? Eating disorder recovery, and I'm talking, the only thing that I've dealt with is BDD, right? But I can speak from that. So like one of the things that is hard for me in terms of like seeing myself accurately is that I have to have compassion for the fact that I'm not an accurate judge of what I look like. Do you know what I mean?
I do. Yeah.
So like, it's okay if I look at myself in the mirror and I go, and I have like these, triggering thoughts about like what I look like, that I have compassion for that part of myself or part of my brain. So, despite all the struggles that I have with my self-image visually and internally, I accept myself, and I'm learning to love all of the different aspects of myself. I mean, and the thing is, loving yourself isn't also, you're going to piss yourself off. Everybody has days where they frustrate themselves and they get angry with themselves. And then, there are also the days where you're like, damn, I killed it. I did such an awesome job, or I was such a good friend, or I did a great job on this article, or whatever it is, So I think that it's kind of a loaded term, like love yourself, because it's about love, but it's also about acceptance. Because if you think about like somebody else, right? Like, loving yourself is a loaded term because it's not right. When you think about somebody else, like me and Aaron, or like you and your wife, or people that are in relationships, to unconditionally love somebody, you're also signing on for the days that are not so great, for the days that you guys have a conflict. So loving someone means weathering through the shitty days and the days where you want to punch them in the face. You know what I mean? Like, not really, but like in your head,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I get frustrated. I mean, yes, I agree. Loving yourself is a loaded term, but I agree that it's about acceptance. I agree that it's also about sometimes being frustrated with yourself and having the patience to work through that, and the insight to like ask questions and understand like, hey, why was I acting that way? Why was I feeling that way? Also, loving yourself is also about maybe even challenging yourself and understanding like what is best for me, like what is good for me in this situation, and challenging yourself sometimes in those situations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sarah, for you, can you give me a couple of seminal moments of your mental health journey that kind of speak to who you are today?
Oh man, that's a hard one. I think if I were to like do it in the style of like the Micro Machine guy, to just like sum it up, yeah, I brought it back to the 90s.
I remember that guy.
Yeah, he was cool. I can't do that.
No.
It was impressive.
Yeah.
So I guess number one would be like my first panic attack when I was reading Books of Magic, the comic book, in high school, and I realized that I was really small. Well, the characters in the comic book were supposed to live forever. They were like immortal, but then they died in the comic book, which really fucked with my head. And so then I started thinking about existentialism and like the fact that I'm like, what's the meaning? Why am I here? I'm insignificant. I'm so small. The universe is so big. And then I started thinking about the fact that I was going to die. And I started to have a panic attack. And my mom told me what it was. And when she walked me outside, because when I get panic, I need to go outside. I can't be inside. It makes me feel better to be out in fresh air,
Yeah, I get that.
So that was like the first moment that I knew that there was something wrong, in quotes, with me. And then like from then until like my 30s is when I kind of mostly hid the things that were wrong with me. So like I went to therapy and I went on medication, but it was like a giant secret.
Yeah.
Except for like people that I was really, really close to, but I was really not open about stuff,
Why is that?
Because in the 90s, it was not something that you talked about really. Like when I was in high school, like I was afraid to tell people that I was having panic attacks because I thought they would think I was a freak,
Did that thought come from you just not being, that type of conversation just wasn't in the lexicon at that time?
Pretty much, yeah. It really, it wasn't. I mean, it was getting there because that, Elizabeth Wurtzel wrote Prozac Nation.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like sitting in Barnes & Noble reading it from cover to cover, but like being afraid someone would find me there reading it in 1995. So it was very hidden. And I mean, I think also part of it was that I just had low self-esteem because I was an insecure teenager and introverted, and I didn't really love myself or know myself. Like I knew myself, but I just was afraid that like I didn't want to share like my inner monologue because I didn't think people would understand,
Yeah, I do know.
So I was very, like internal. And then finally it became a situation where like society started evolving and having more of a conversation. And that's when I started blogging when I had kids. And initially it was like, I started talking about like I've always wanted to be a writer, right? So like from the time I was little, like the time I was like 7, and I was always writing, and like recently my dad sent me a picture of a book that I made when it was like something about, it was called like Tim the Mountain Climber. And it was a book that I made. It was really funny. I posted it on Instagram, but I was always like wanting to be a writer and publish books. And so, when I started blogging, I was writing about my parenting, struggles and like different debacles and things like that. But it wasn't what I really wanted to write about. It was just sort of a way to write. Mm-hmm. And then as I started kind of being, I was like, I was basically in prison in a way, because like when you have a newborn, and at the time, like my ex was working these like overnight shifts. So like I was in my house like all the fucking time. So what was I going to do? I was going to blog and like creep on social media and meet new people and new parents, and also read all these different blogs, Mm-hmm. And I started reading not just parenting blogs, but just people that, well, it started with parenting blogs. And then I started reading blogs about people that were open about struggling with depression, that were parents, or people that were talking about being on meds. And I said to myself, okay, the dialogue is opening up and it's safe for me to come out now. So finally, like I wrote this post I managed to start blogging for HuffPost. And then I wrote a post about having panic disorder. And it was the first time that I'd ever said, like the first sentence of that post is, I have panic disorder. And to write that sentence for me when I was 33 was really hard, because it was the first time I was like really like owning it, Did
you not own it in therapy?
Yeah, but that's different. Yeah. That's the thing. Like, it's different to be like in the privacy of your therapist's office and like talk about all of your shit, and like then walk out on the street in New York and be like, everything's fine, Like I mean, not everything's fine, because like I was very real about when I wasn't doing well, but it wasn't like I was like talking to someone I just met and being like, hey, what's up? I have depression, like it's not like that. But now that's what I do. Like, I'm real. You know what I mean?
So I totally relate to the experience of like hiding everything. That's what I did, but it almost killed me. It broke me. Like, how did you cope that long without really being open about it?
It was very toxic and damaging to my mental and physical health. I ended up getting like really sick. Like I had an ulcer. I was like doubled over in pain, and basically like everything I ate like made me fucking violently ill. Like, okay, so basically my stomach, because of anxiety, and panic, my stomach is all fucked up. Like, because from the time, like, if I go back in high school, let's go back to like age, let's see, 17. It started with getting like really bad reflux because anxiety makes you really, it takes a toll on your GI system, And then what would happen is in my senior year of high school, my panic attacks were so bad that I would wake up in a panic attack and I couldn't eat because I was so anxious, and I would vomit every day, like just every morning, because I could not function, and obviously if you're doing that every day for an entire year, you're going to get your fucking GI system is going to get messed up,
Yeah.
And so, I mean, and eventually, like, oh, and then I'm sorry, like back to like sophomore year of high school, I was so depressed because of, my brain, and I became suicidal due to a multitude of issues in high school. But then I just stopped eating, like, entirely. Like, I stopped eating for 2 weeks, and I got really sick.
Yeah.
I got mono, and I was almost hospitalized. And so again, like, that took a toll on my GI system. So basically, like, all people don't realize that mental illness is very much connected to physical, like, the mind body connection is extremely real. So it's not like you're just like, I'm depressed, right? Like, you're not just like, I'm depressed and I sleep a lot. No, like, I'm depressed and I don't eat, or I'm depressed and I eat too much, or I'm anxious and I'm vomiting my brains out. Like, like, my therapist in Portland was like, the anxiety shits are real. Like, prostaglandins are a real thing. Like, if you can be so anxious that you're just like going to the bathroom every 5 minutes,
Yeah, I relate to that mightily. I have chronic stomach issues.
Yeah, it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that really took a toll on me over the years, is like, I internalized all of my stuff, my shit, and basically fucked up my body because of that, so a lot of the physical ailments that I have now are because of mental illness, but what's interesting is my stomach started to get a lot better when I started being more open about my feelings. Like, I don't get reflux anymore because I'm very blunt and I say what I feel, which is really funny. It's weird,
Well, a component of that, or let me put this as a question, is you're not worried how people will take that? Well, not worried how people will interpret that or judge you?
Yeah, I think the thing is, I got desensitized to how the world perceives mental illness, and as a default, I just assume that, like, people won't get it. And so when they do, I'm pleasantly surprised.
Got it.
And so, well, I think the thing is that there's a lot of people that want to learn. That's what I've noticed.
I agree.
Like, if I say, if I'm talking to someone and I'm like, oh yeah, like, I have bipolar disorder, and they're like, oh really? What's that like? Like, that's what I've seen a lot more than, like, well, I see a lot of it. Like, I've seen the gamut. Like, I've seen people, like, I just was talking about this Uber driver that I wasn't even discussing my mental illness, but she was like, oh, my boyfriend, like, he's so bipolar, and like, he's so crazy, and he's violent, and I kicked him out of the house because he's like, and just throwing around the word bipolar, like, without an actual basis in reality,
Yeah.
And I was like, oh really? Well, I'm bipolar. And then she was like, totally didn't know what to say,
Yeah.
But that's the thing. So you still have shit like that, but I think that the more that we open up the dialogue, but then, see, it was interesting though. After that, she was like, after she recovered from the shock of that, she was like, oh, but you don't seem bipolar, but so that's the thing, right? Like, what does that even mean? So then it's like a whole societal phenomenon of, if you don't know what that is, and you don't know what that looks like, and you don't understand that it doesn't look one way, then we need to start unpacking that and educating people.
Yeah, I mean, that's an opportunity for you to share the other side of it, because her experience was, oh, I know this person in my life has bipolar disorder, or maybe they don't, and her sort of she's just being swayed by the cultural stigma that people with bipolar are, you know, we're just talking about the manic side of it, the you know, maybe the dangerous side or whatever, you know, whatever she was referring to, but like that's her sort of limited experience, and then there's an opportunity for you there to say, hey, look, like there's this other side of it, and this is my experience with it, you know.
Right, exactly. And so I think that, and also mental illness, you know, in terms of like opening up and sharing what you have experienced, it's like there's a lot of overlap between that and other things. Like when you share a piece of yourself or your life experience, or essentially any information about you, you cannot guarantee that the person on the receiving end is going to get it. So one of the other things that I'm trying to work on is this idea that just because someone doesn't understand me doesn't mean there's something wrong with me, right? Like
Right.
it doesn't reflect on me. It just means they don't understand, and that's okay. And I can work, you know, I can try to make it or communicate in a way that they can understand, because maybe I'm not speaking the same language. That's okay. But it's easy for me and probably a lot of people to personalize it when you don't feel understood.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's well said. So you experienced, you know, this sort of hiding your mental illness, you know, up until your 30s. And then you start researching, you start looking at blogs, and you get this idea in your head that like, hey, I can share this openly. And then you write this article in Huffington Post. What was that experience like? What was the reaction like to that?
Well, that's when I started getting this kind of idea that maybe this could go somewhere, and I could start exploring other areas of mental illness, because people were writing me emails and saying, you know, thank you for sharing your story. Because the article was called "Fighting Against the Stigma of Mental Illness."
Mm.
And so people started writing and saying, I wish there was a place that I could share my story. And then I started looking, because this was in 2014. So I started looking for places that people could like share, you know, write an essay about living with mental illness. And I couldn't find anything. And that's when I created Stigma Fighters. So it started as stigmafighters.com, which was just a blog series. And I asked people that I knew in the blogging community that were open about living with mental illness to write 1,000-word essays about their journey. And then it started growing, and I just started getting random submissions from people, which was awesome. And then I met Allie Burke, who is one of my best friends, and she lives with paranoid schizophrenia, and she wrote for Stigma Fighters, and we became really close, and we decided to take Stigma Fighters from being a blog and create a nonprofit organization. So that was a journey, and we crowdfunded to do that. And then we took, we had an executive assistant working with us who suggested that we take the stories on the website and make them into like print them out and put them in a binder, right? Which would be kind of cool. And I was like, wait a second, like, why don't we just like publish a book, you know? And so at the time, I had another book published with this hybrid publishing company. And so we submitted the proposal to publish an anthology of Stigma Fighters, and they accepted that. And so we published the Stigma Fighters anthology, which was a collection of the essays. And then that publishing company went under. So we republished the Stigma Fighters anthology, and then we just kept going, and we published 3 of them. So we have, no, actually now the fourth just came out. So we have 4 volumes of the Stigma Fighters anthology, which feature real, 1,000-word essays from people living with like schizophrenia and bipolar and depression, and people that have recovered from eating disorders or people that are sexual assault survivors. And most of the essays are, people reveal their names, their real names, but some of them are anonymous, which is fine with me because it also speaks to the pervasive nature of stigma. So there's one that always stuck with me. It's called Once Upon a Time I Was Raped. And the person wanted to remain anonymous. And it's a very powerful essay. But I mean, given the current political climate, you can understand, why people want to remain anonymous when it comes to sexual assault. But in any case, so the Stigma Fighters continues to grow. We've done a lot of speaking engagements. I did a reading at NYU, my alma mater, where we flew people into New York from all over the country to read their essays. I did a reading at Barnes & Noble on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, my hometown, with the anthology. And we've done events at there was one I did at Empire State University up near Albany. So yeah, I mean, my goal initially was to create mental health sororities and fraternities in different colleges so that people had peer-to-peer support.
Oh, that's a great idea.
That's what I really wanted to do. It's a little bit challenging to break into that university environment and into the point where you can start something like that, you know? I mean, Active Minds is kind of like that, but it's not exactly the same modality. It's more just doing it's more activism rather than living in the same environment or whatever.
Right.
So yeah, so that's basically what all I've been doing. And then I also write professionally, and I've published 11 books, and I've written for The Atlantic and all kinds of places, Quartz, Psychology Today, HuffPost. And then I have I continue to write. It's a glamorous world being a freelance writer. It's very exciting. But that's basically what I've been doing, which has been, what really pisses me off is when people are like, oh, so is when I would go on these job interviews, to have a day job.
Yeah. And
people would be like, I see on your resume that you are the CEO of Stigma Fighters. Is that a passion project? And I would just be like, what the fuck does that mean? But I think what they were asking is your work with Stigma Fighters going to impact your ability to do this day job?
Exactly.
That's what they asked.
Yeah. Yeah. What I admire what you're doing with Stigma Fighters. I think it's admirable and tremendous work. What, for the listener's sake, what kinds of essays do you seek out? Is there a specific theme you're targeting? Obviously, the intent holistically is to fight against mental health stigma. But is there, for the listener's sake, if they wanted to submit something, what are you looking for? Or how do they do that?
So we feature any kind of narrative about how, you're living with mental illness. So anyone who's living with what I mentioned, anything, PTSD, anxiety, depression, all of those different, anything that's under that heading, they can go to the website, and it's stigmafighters.com. And there's something where you can click on submit and just put your essay in there, and we will receive it as a draft, and then we can publish it. What I recommend, though, always to people is back your work up. Don't just put it in the form and think that it's been saved. Save it as a Google Doc or a Word doc or a draft in your email, just in case it gets lost in the ether of the internet. But yeah, we'd love to hear your story. We want to hear your voice.
That's great. How do you describe, or what does it mean to be a stigma fighter?
To be a stigma fighter means to be yourself. So if you are living with something that is stigmatized in society and you unabashedly rock whatever that is, that's fighting stigma.
Okay, I like that. What forms of stigma have you experienced and still experience?
Oh, well, I think the biggest one has to do with bipolar disorder because it's challenging. I don't want to be bipolar. I don't want to have bipolar disorder. I fight that a lot. Like every time I'm symptomatic, like I remember sitting in my psychiatrist's office in New York and he was like, "This is mania. You're manic right now." And I was like, "Fuck you." Like I didn't say that, but in my head I thought it, because nobody wants to be like anything, right? Like that's something that my psychiatrist here said, because I said it to her too. I'm like, "I don't want to be bipolar." And she was like, "Sarah, nobody wants to be anything. You think anyone wants to be anything? They don't. Does anyone want to have cancer? They don't, So with bipolar disorder, the stigma itself is so pervasive that I think that I've also kind of bought into that in a way. Like I self-stigmatize where I'm just like, "Oh, I don't want to be bipolar. That sucks," But I think one of the reasons that I don't want to be bipolar is that the symptoms are super intense, like the depression is really intense, and I've only gone full manic one time. Usually I get hypomania or dysphoric mania. But like the things that you see about mania being like, "Oh, I'm going to go have sex with like 1,000 people," like that. I'm not like, I'm not out there whoring it up. Like that's not it. Like I might, use my vibrator a lot, but I'm not, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not like that.
Yeah.
I'm not like flying to France, like
Gotcha.
That's the thing. So mania is going to look different on me than it is on other people because no bipolar person and like no one's the same. It's like with autism, right? One person could have autism and they appear to have these symptoms. And then another person could be autistic and they don't look like that at all, So it's the same with bipolar disorder. But in terms of the stigma with bipolar disorder, which I find so problematic, is when do I disclose it and when do I not disclose it? I'm not sure. Is it safe to talk about it with this person or is it not? With the other shit that I have, I don't have that at all. Like, I don't have a problem candidly talking about OCD or anxiety or depression or like anything, like, because I think it's so fucked up, but like, those are like safe mental illnesses.
Yeah.
like
Aaron spoke to that a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Like you can safely talk about like, OCD or PTSD or, all that shit. But bipolar disorder, oh shit, like nobody wants to talk about that. You must be fucking crazy, But the thing is, the more that I get comfortable talking about it, the better, because it's going to help society understand it better. I mean, I don't even fucking understand it. Sometimes I'm like, is this a symptom of my bipolar disorder, or is this just me being Sarah Fader? Like, I don't know, And I think that there's a lot of things like that where it's like, one of the things that's really fucked up about bipolar is that you're constantly questioning whether this is a mood shift. I'm like, oh, am I just like happy or is this mania? Like that's the thing that really fucks with you because mania is really tricky, right? Like mania is telling you like everything's awesome. It's all good. Like things are great, So you have to like look out for the signs that things are not actually great. Like you're fucking manic as fuck, Like one of the things that is a indicator of that is if the day before you wanted to kill yourself and the next day you're like, shit is great, because that does happen.
Yeah.
Are
you Are you currently on medication for your bipolar?
Yeah.
what,
mean,
what are you taking?
so I take Lamictal, 200 milligrams, and then because I have OCD and panic, I also take Effexor. So if I wasn't taking Lamictal, I could not take Effexor alone,
I
right?
see.
Because Effexor would push me into mania, but Lamictal is the mood stabilizer.
Right. Have you tried different medication for your bipolar over the years?
No, so I was only recently diagnosed with bipolar because I've been misdiagnosed for many, many years. Initially, for years, my psychiatrist was like, I kept telling him, I'm like, I think I'm bipolar. He's like, no, you're not bipolar. You just have depression and anxiety. And I'm like, no, dude, I have bipolar disorder, you know? And then finally, like, he saw me manic in 2017. Like, that's when he was like, yeah, this is bipolar disorder,
Oh,
you
I
know?
see.
So, you know, I've been on, like, the list of medications that I've tried is so long. Like, it's so fucking long. But I'm still trying to find the right one. Like, I don't feel like I'm on the right regimen of medication right now because Lamictal is good, but it also exacerbates my anxiety. So that's one thing that is kind of challenging. So I'm going to kind of regroup with my psychiatrist and talk about that. And the other challenging thing is my current psychiatrist only specializes, not only, but her specialty is anxiety disorders. And the challenge for me in terms of getting the correct diagnosis is that because of having all these comorbid diagnoses, it's difficult to tease out the bipolar disorder. That's why it went undiagnosed for so long.
Right.
So because I also have ADHD, you know, and that's a baseline of being hyper and, you know, having a lot of ideas and et cetera, et cetera. The mania blended in, you know?
Yeah. No, totally.
So it was, go ahead.
No, it's another reason why it is exhausting to go, you know, to try different medications to just to live with mental illness, but it's also another sort of reminder that we need to be patient with ourselves, even though it's so hard sometimes.
It is, but I think the thing is like, I always go back to the introduction to The Road Less Traveled, which really changed my life. And it's kind of this, I mean, people say it's the same thing as Buddhism, but it helps me, which is that life is painful and challenging and hard. And that's the default state of life. And so when things are good and when things are joyous and feel easy, that is an aberration. So when things are difficult, just remind yourself that this is normal and that there's nothing wrong. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. Nothing's all fucked up. Like, this is the nature of life, right? So then when something awesome happens, you'll be like, oh shit, this is amazing.
Yeah. Another way to put it, and this is how I always frame it, is it's shitty now. I've been here before. I'll be here again. Doesn't mean tomorrow will be like this.
That's a really good one. You need a t-shirt. It's a good t-shirt.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, the whole sort of safe, what are the safe mental illnesses and what are the sort of not safe ones. And, you know, bipolar is certainly one of them that, you know, I think people have a lot more fear regarding, you know, I think, and that fear it comes from just ignorance, you know, and I think even to use your experience, I think even there's still fear and a lot to know in the medical community about things like bipolar or schizophrenia. I have a brother who's schizophrenic, and there's still so much to know and to learn. And I think that's scary.
Well, yeah. And I think bipolar, if you were to, so I'm trying to think of how to put this. I mean, I have five close friends that have schizophrenia.
Mhm.
So, I think that it would be safer to disclose bipolar disorder than schizophrenia in our current society.
Probably.
Just from what I've seen, although the people that I know that live with schizophrenia are relative, and also like I'm trying to think like, well, it depends on the person. One of them is consistently open, like, and then the two that I'm thinking of right now that are not that. In addition to that person, the other two people go in and out of disclosure. So one of the trickiest parts of it with schizophrenia that I've seen from my friends who deal with it is like when to disclose it at work. If to disclose it at work, do you check the box? Because if you check the box, I have a disability, you can get accommodations. But if you check the box, I have a disability, do you then get discriminated against even though it's against the law?
Yeah. Yeah. It's difficult. And I think it sucks that it's this way, but I think each experience, each scenario is probably different, and we have to like take each one as they come, until we get to a place where the stigma is gone and
Right.
the judgment
Exactly.
is gone.
Exactly. Well, the fucked up thing is, in this current society, would not check the fucking box, and the reason is stigma, because I don't trust the company to not discriminate against me. I mean, but then it depends on the company, though. I'm not going to say that universally I wouldn't do that, but I would say probably 99% of the time I wouldn't fucking check the box. I don't trust people to accommodate me, especially because my disability isn't physical.
Right. How do you feel you would be if you did disclose? How do you feel you would be not accommodated?
Because whether or not people mean to stigmatize you if you say you have mental illness in a workplace, they might not intentionally do it, but they're going to do it subconsciously.
How so?
Because they're going to be looking out for if you make a mistake or if you're late or any little thing that's going to deviate or inconvenience the company, they will blame on your mental illness. I've seen it. Yeah.
I've seen it too.
And so the thing is, I don't want to have that happen, right? Like, and I, not just mental illness, there's other shit that's happened with, like that. I just find that a lot of like corporate entities are not focused on humanity, but rather productivity. But what they don't understand is that in order for them to be productive, they have to rely on humans.
No, I know that very well. I'm grateful to have a day job that I actually love, and I work with humans that I can be open with about my mental illness. But, for 20 years in working in various jobs, I've never had that up until, a couple of years ago.
Yeah, the same here. Like I work for BetterHelp now, and my boss knows I'm bipolar, and he knows, well, I just disclosed that to him, but he knows about all of the things that I deal with. And he's like, do you want to write about this? Do you want to write about that? Like, if I want to write for the advice column about anything that I deal with, I can. And I'm currently making, a series of animated videos where I'm the voiceover for them.
Oh, cool.
of like, yeah, it is really cool. Well, I'm not sure if I'm going to end up being the voice, but I'm writing the scripts for them. And I'm doing the preliminary voiceover. So I wrote one for bipolar, one for ADHD, and one for anxiety. And it is very liberating to be in an office. Well, not I work remotely, but like to be in an environment with a job that understands like the fact that I deal with this stuff, and I can say to my boss, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't come to work today because I had a massive panic attack and I have to call out.
Yeah. But what you're describing is beautiful, and I'm grateful that it exists for you, and I'm grateful that it exists for me. But these are two examples of situations where we are opening up to people we know will accept us. How do we change the world if when we encounter situations where we feel like we will be judged or we will be treated differently and we don't disclose? How there has to be, what I'm getting at maybe is like, does there have to be examples of people where they do disclose in situations where it may not be 100% safe or conducive to that sort of vulnerability, but that like maybe some of that openness will change a little bit? I don't know.
So I don't think it starts with a person. I think it starts at a larger level. I think what needs to happen is there needs to be mental health education in companies. So I think an initiative would be like having people from NAMI or something come into all of these do workshops at these different corporate entities and teach them, like do a campaign like hashtag check the box.
Yeah.
You know, so that the company understands that if someone's checking the box, that it doesn't matter what they're asking for, they need it.
Yeah.
Right. So like they need to understand that invisible illnesses are real, and maybe they don't because they don't have them. So then we need people to come in and teach them what the fuck they are.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's that intellectual part of it. There's that understanding part of it. But like, how do we change the hearts? Does that come with it? I mean, I think there's a couple sides, right?
No, I think so. I think so because incorporated into those workshops, bring people in that have schizophrenia to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I don't think it needs to be intellectualized. I think it needs to be like, okay, so this is what we need to do to care about people. Now, here's someone with schizophrenia, and listen to their story about how they got fucked over and what needs to change. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And stories, as you and I both know, are powerful and moving.
Right. Because the thing is people are not going to change their corporate environment unless they see that their behavior is impacting the lives of other people.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have somebody come in and tell their like lifetime movie story and they can actually like latch onto it, I'm being facetious, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where it's like they come in and they're like, hey, like this behavior in corporate America really fucked my life up and I got fired because I have a mental illness. You know?
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of story that a company needs to come face to face with and realize, oh shit, we got to change our behavior because we're ruining people's lives.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's about the human.
It is. And I mean, that's also a cultural phenomenon where it's like, I mean, look at our society. We're going to this place where technology is so advanced that we can't even keep up with it as human beings, you know?
Right.
Like, we are getting to the point where it's like, how can we prevent robots from taking over our jobs, you know?
Yeah. I mean, as much as I would love to see, because I love the world of the Terminator, as much as I would love to see that, yeah, it's probably not good for humans.
Let me tell you something. I really avoid the mail order prescription situation because my insurance company wants to be like, I'm sorry, you cannot go to the Target pharmacy anymore because you have exceeded your amount of refills. Now a mail order prescription has to happen. So in my mind, I'm like, well, fuck no, I don't want a robot claw filling my Lamictal because I don't trust that shit, you know, because that's what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. I hear ya. That's funny. That's
Like,
so funny.
you know,
I like the idea of a robot claw. grabbing, just loose medication.
Yeah, that's what it's doing, though. I'm telling you, like that. I'm not even joking. Like that is what happens when you sign up for mail order pharmacy. They have a fucking automated robot situation going on.
Wow. I didn't know that.
You live, you learn. You know.
I do know. I do know now.
You know.
So, Sarah, what kinds of things are you writing now? What kinds of things do you want to write and create in the world? I know, maybe we can transition a little bit as we start to wrap up here into what you're doing with your publishing company and that stuff. Like, what are your goals? What are your future visions?
What I'm writing mostly now is like stuff for my day job. So I'm writing a lot about mental health and mental illness, etc. But there are lots of things that I want to write. I mean, I think with the publishing company, I just want people to write about things that they're passionate about that inspire people to be resilient, because I think resiliency is like this big buzzword now, but it is a really great concept, because as human beings, we have to be resilient in order to survive.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't think that, I really hope that word doesn't get played out, because just to bring back a 90s expression, because it's such an important tenet of being a human. If you can harness resilience and understand that no matter what happens to you, you have the ability to bounce back and survive, that is the epitome of living with mental illness.
Yeah. I mean, just look at, all the achievements of humankind. If we look back in history and all the struggle and the heartache and the ups and downs, the ebbs and flows, like so much was created in times of heartache and struggle. And I think what helps me sometimes is knowing that there are ebbs and flows and that will never change. And also, I can only control what's in front of me.
I know. I'm never going to get that lesson, or hopefully I will soon.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is hard. I mean, I think radical acceptance, like even if you're struggling with something or something is hard, I also think that people need to stop language policing each other. Like if somebody says, so I can't remember, like, don't do what I did to Aaron is the point, but don't like, so the thing that I can't remember where I learned this, but people will be like, it's so hard. And they'll be like, don't say hard, say challenging, And you know what? Sometimes things are fucking hard. Why do I need to say challenging if I don't want to fucking say that? Like it's like when people kind of debate over the survivor victim thing. Okay, so if I don't want to identify as a survivor, then I don't have to. You can call yourself a survivor. You can call yourself a victim. You can call yourself like a purple octopus. Like, who the fuck cares? Like, don't tell people what they can call themselves.
Yeah, your experience is valid and real to you, and that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's something I've said over and over again on this podcast, but I love it so much. In episode 4, my friend Katie Hilliard said, we need to give people the dignity of their own experiences. And I think that's exactly what you're talking about. We need to recognize that it's not about us, that their experiences are valid and real to them. And if they're, opening up their hearts and relaying that experience, we need to not be judgmental. We need to not be assholes. We need to listen actively and to open our hearts as well back to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I keep thinking about like this idea of perspective and like really trying to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm just realizing like what an asshole I am. Like I really need to work on not being so stubborn and rooted in my own position. I mean, not like I mean I'm not I'm not saying I do that like all the time, but like I think when things are emotionally charged, it's really difficult to like detach from that and look at someone else's experience.
I hear that. No, I think we can all relate to that. I think what helps me, and you're definitely not an asshole, but I think what helps me is the radical acceptance of this idea that what I was speaking to earlier, that life is chaos, and we are on this pale blue dot that is largely out of our control. And if we can get a bit more towards that, inching towards that framework, I feel like we can let go of a lot of our ego, a lot of our, understandings, often misunderstandings that we have the right framework of the world, or we have the right perspective, because ultimately there is no right perspective. There's no right framework. We're all just trying to figure it out day by day as we kind of figure it out and survive and make what we can with the brights and darks that happen all the time simultaneously.
Indeed. I like that.
Yeah. Well, let's start wrapping up here. We always wrap up the show talking about our empathy heroes. So this is someone in our lives. It could be even a writer that we don't know. It could be someone in fiction. It could be an historical figure. What have you? Someone who is just maybe someone who's just good at embracing empathy in their lives. Do you want to name someone first, or do you want me to go first?
Oh, no, I just said you can go first.
Okay. My empathy hero this week is submitted by my friend Jeff Wagg. If you guys aren't following Jeff Wagg, he runs the College of Curiosity. It's a fantastic organization that cherishes and fosters the idea that we need to be curious as humans. But he submitted this empathy hero this week, and the empathy hero is Cindy Lou Who of The Grinch Story, and Cindy Lou Who's act of giving the Grinch some kindness. And so, I love that moment. I love the original Grinch story, that animated story. It's fun, it's beautiful, and I love the sentiment there. And so, Cindy Lou Who, you are my empathy hero this week on Yumi Empathy. How about you, Sarah?
Ooh. I think that I'm going to go with the Giving Tree.
Okay.
Because, it's a sad story. Because, like the Giving Tree gives everything that it has to that little boy.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It's really sad, but at the same time, it kind of epitomizes what we were talking about not expecting reciprocal action. And so the Giving Tree is the epitome of altruism. It doesn't ask what the boy can do back for it. It's literally thinking, what can I do to help this situation?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then even when it has nothing, the old man sits on the stump.
Right. Yeah.
So it's this idea that you can give and not expect anything back. And it's not something that, like, the whole idea behind empathy is to not expect something back,
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. No, that's a good one. I think that's a good choice. And it's a book that I haven't read in ages, so I'm going to pick it up again. I think we have it somewhere.
It's really sad. It makes me it's a very depressing children's book, but it does actually have a good message. I mean, I think Shel Silverstein is I've always loved him, but this concept of not
thinking about what you're going to benefit from a situation, but just giving what you have because you know it'll help somebody.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. Amen. Sarah, let's share with the listeners where they can connect with you, or they can read your writing and learn more about you.
So you can go to my website, which is sarahfader.com. If you think Vader, but substitute the V with an S. So sarahfader.com. You can follow me on Twitter at the Sarah Fader. Now, I'm not pretentious. I don't really think that I'm the only Sarah Fader. It's just that Twitter won't give me at Sarah Fader because somebody has it and has used that like in 2011 and has not relinquished the handle. So if you're on Twitter and you want to help me out, feel free to tweet the Twitter team and tell them that I deserve so I don't look like a pretentious piece of crap. No, I mean, I'm being silly, but no, it's at the Sarah Fader on Twitter.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for being on You Me Empathy, Sarah. It was a delight.
Oh, it was a delight too. You know, you should I should connect you with my friend Sparkle. She would love to be on your podcast and talk about ED recovery.
Oh yeah, that would be fantastic. I would love that. Well, and to you listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's You Me Empathy.